problem with tariff wars, they are like nuclear wars. No winners, just losers.
Tariffs would be a very bad idea, not just for us, but for them as well. That it's not governments, it's not the foreign operations that pay for tariffs. It is your own consumer, because everybody loses at the end of the day. So it's a last resort. It should never be a first resort.
12 days until February 1st. How likely do you think it is that we could reach some kind of deal?
I think we all have to be realistic that he seems bent on moving ahead with this.
Today, folks, is Tesla warning us that we are actually going to be hit with a 25% tariff, that the meme coin pumping president is kind of pressuring is going to be coming February 1st. Over the next couple of weeks will be the most pivotal in the Canadian economy for uncertainty, unlike anything we've seen with the exception of the pandemic. We just got off the back of the inflationary cycle. It really felt like with the cutting of interest rates that the Canadian economy was trucking toward a new, more prosperous future, considering how dead our GDP's been. But now that uncertainty is back, and we're seeing it in our politicians as the Canadian dollar literally day over day is doing like 1 percentage point movements because of short interest options trading. JP Morgan strategists said that traders short positions against the loonie in the derivatives market, which now totaled some 11.7 billion among speculative traders, the most among the G10 according to CFTC data aggregated by Bloomberg. It's kind of insane, really. The median of the strike price basically calls on the US dollar versus Canadian dollar is around $1.45, they said, with a handful of strikes falling in the 150s. To put it in perspective, if we look at the reverse, so basically the one United States dollar to the Canadian value, it's sitting at $1.43. So there's expectations that if tariffs come into play, we're going to see an immediate drop somewhere to 145 or 150. I'm always showing you guys what one Canadian dollar to the US dollar looks like. So we're playing in a very weird, peculiar market where a lot of people are betting with the currencies, right? That's why our currencies have seen such extreme volatility. We will immediately go into a recession if we get hit with 25% tariffs. And we're starting to see signs that this may actually happen from Tesla, of all things. I mean, take a listen to this, kind of mind-blowing.
Tesla is raising the prices of its cars in Canada starting on February the 1st. Here's what we know. The price of Tesla's cheapest vehicle, the Model 3, will be going up, wait for this, $9,000.
That's a lot.
While prices on the Model Y, X, and S will all go up by $4,000. No clear idea yet from Tesla on why exactly they are raising their prices, but the date of that increase, February the 1st, does coincide with when U.S. President Donald Trump has said he could impose widespread tariffs on Canada.
Now, I'm not going to lie, I am a Tesla product fanboy. I have been, as many people are out there. And when I take a look at what a Model 3 costs, which is like one of the most affordable Teslas in Canada, it is going to price out so many people, which is only going to hurt Tesla in the near term when it comes to the already dwindling growth in their auto sales, right? I mean, if you look at the long range, they all say long range, but this is the lowest price model you can get right now at $55,990 before any of the extras, because self-driving on top of that is 11 grand. So just to get the base model come February 1st, you're gonna be paying almost 65K. You want self-driving, you're pushing it closer to 75, 76. It is crazy at how many people are not going to be able to afford these vehicles anymore. And it's not particularly maybe just because of the concern of tariffs. Unfortunately, the federal EV incentives in Canada that were worth up to $5,000 ended on January 12th after the program funding ran out. Transport Canada has not said if or when the program might resume. I don't know if this has something to do with it particularly, but this is also happening in the United States because obviously, you know, Trump wants to get rid of the $7,500 EV tax credit. You know, Elon really champions Trump, but the fact is for the majority of the policies that he's going to be implementing, it doesn't matter how cheap Elon is able to make a Tesla in the United States. The lack of these EV tax credits are going to deteriorate, you know, the value. It doesn't matter how you look at it. You're not getting any tax deductions like you once were. So it's just going to make up for any tax deductions, right? So I don't know why people right now are so bullish on Tesla, why the stock is trading so parabolically high with absolutely no EV growth, whereas Elon promised that there was an infinite amount of demand. You recall on those earnings call, like we can't meet the demand, and then they canceled their Mexican plant, and now they're just trying to make more efficiencies at their current plants. But we know that the auto sector is not a gem of growth for them anymore. In fact, everyone's kind of turning a blind eye to that to focus more on energy storage, energy growth, and robotics. But you're talking about a company that literally the infrastructure is incredible. I love Tesla at the right at the right price. And I'm not saying it's a car company, but when it's worth all the auto companies combined and Uber and Lyft, yet makes less revenue and net income than GM. I mean, there's some red flags of bullish concern there when there's no actual growth coming into play. And I've seen so much pumping going on when it comes to full self-driving, which those cars aren't going to be released till 2026. And that's even if we start seeing like self-driving actually come into play here at some point with regulations. So I'm really excited to see what earnings as a whole looks like, because I'm very bullish on most of these tech companies. I mean, how can you not be when we saw what Netflix posted? So I'm going to be paying attention to Meta, which has been pumping today. Thank God it's one of our largest positions between the wife and I. Google's been doing very well. So we'll see how earnings come into play. So you can subscribe, because obviously I'll update for that. But pivoting back to the Canadian economy and what's kind of going on with these clapping back of tariffs. I mean, we're seeing our premiers here, want to force an election so they can guarantee their spot while they fight for tariffs. But this is literally, or at least negotiate the tariffs. But this is what Doug Ford has been clapping back with.
And I talked to the great governor of Kentucky, and I remember in the last tariffs we threw on the bourbon, first thing out of his mouth is, "Don't touch my bourbon." And I said, "Governor, that's a serious business down there when you touch with their bourbon. It's like messing with our LCBO." So I said, Governor, you got to talk to your president, because the first thing we're doing, we're getting your bourbon. And I've sent a direction to the LCBO, these tariffs come, to clear off every bit of U.S. alcohol off the shelves. Let's start promoting more Ontario-made wines and the vodkas and spirits. That's what we need to do. We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the entire world. They will feel the pain. I will make sure I communicate this to our other.
So I don't know if this is an appropriate stance, because obviously they're trying to get businesses in the United States to pressure the United States, the government, to not implement these tariffs, because there's going to be clapping back. But I'm kind of one of these people that just clap back first. F it. Like, let's just start doing it now. Like, you want to threaten us? Like, forget it. If you're going to ruin the global relationships we have with these countries, considering snowbirds, so many Canadians go over there, spend a ton of money in the United States. Like, I'm presuming these are still negotiation tactics. Tesla's kind of signaling otherwise, but I figure, forget it. Let's just clap back now, start pulling stuff off the shelves. Forget it. It's gonna completely destroy our economy if he does this, right? So if we're gonna go down with the ship, let's just start doing it now, right? Like, I mean, let's just say, hey, we're gonna get crazy because you're getting crazy. Let's have some fun with it, right? But I'm really curious and more perplexed on what happens with oil, because almost all Canadian crude oil in 2023 was shipped to the United States, and a 25% tariff would cause an immediate hike for all citizens in the United States. On top of that, you get the inflationary pressures back up, meaning we're not going to see further interest rate cuts, which Trump seems to think he can just fire the Fed and get them to cut rates, which completely, negates the mandates of what the Federal Reserve's entire, system is, to be separated from government, to control based off, data. So it's so funny, this complete clown show that is going on right now, and what's actually going to turn up because of it, and it's going to be extreme volatility, right? So I'm not telling you to sell your portfolios here. You really kind of have to graze through this, make sure you're diversified, and just stomach the volatility. Now, like I told you, 80% of our assets are in the United States, because unfortunately that's where you're going to want to be for most of this. At least in the big tech, you want to be in the US dollar, because it's going to be able to solidify a lot stronger with their dominance over our economy, and you just got to kind of play it intelligently that way. But outside of that, we can't really trade with too many other countries, because fortunately Canada doesn't have a good trade partner with China, which sadly breaks my heart, because I love what China's doing with EVs. They are advancing pretty insanely in a lot of different sectors that we are just not allowed to appreciate, because unfortunately Canada and the US tariff the living hell out of China, like 100% tariffs. And these are recent tariffs that they're supposed to come into play. If you don't think tariffs are just something the US and Canada is dealing with, no. Canada and the US have been tariffing China already on a lot of different things, and this is a constant flux. It's like ebb and flow between what products are being introduced. But China, they've always, Japan, like these companies over there have always been producing like superior, manufacturing on a multitude of levels. You go back to the 80s, and there was a big problem with US manufacturing with vehicles, because Chinese cars were coming out that were much more efficient, much more reliable, right? But, the government doesn't like that we outsource that stuff. They want it being made here. And I get that. I do. But we're a globalized economy at this point. Most Canadian companies are owned by US companies. Like, look at Canada's Wonderland. Honestly, like, why can't we just say, hey, a U.S. company owns Canada's Wonderland. We're going to raise the foreign export of any capital you make out of Canada's Wonderland. I think we should really just start standing up and saying, hey, if this is what your government wants to do, then forget it. Like, we're going to come down with like the gavel and hammer, and we're going to make it hell for U.S. people to operate here. I think it's the only other way to deal with it until people are raging against the machine. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just being hyperbolic here, but when you're dealing with a man that is purely hyperbolic, how else do you respond? I'd love to know what you think in that comment section below.